watching the Forefront Church video podcast. And wherever you're at viewing online, we just want to say thank you and welcome. And one of the ways that we can help connect with you is we want to hear from you and where you're at and how we can help. And so head over to forefrontchurch.info after the message and click the Connect tab. It's a great way for us to help you along your spiritual journey as you connect with God and learn about Jesus. And so sit back, relax. We hope that you're challenged and encouraged from today's message.
All right, good morning. How are we feeling this morning? All right, better than 8:30? No, I had to ask them a couple times, but we're not going to make an issue out of that, all right? My name is Chris, and I'm glad to be here with you guys this morning, sharing in what's going on, but I got to be real up front. I got something that I have to get off my chest today, something that I've been dealing with and struggling with for a while, and that is that I lost my bike. You guys ever lost anything? Like, I lost my bike, and I'm still kind of bitter and mad about it. Let me explain what happened. A few years ago, I lived in a small apartment near the beach, and my friend Tim, good dude, lived with me. He was my roommate, and it was a summer night. And Tim asked me if he could borrow my bike and take it for a ride around the beach. I'm a generous guy. So, of course, I said, yeah, dude, go ahead, take my bike, go for a ride, enjoy yourself. But as the day progressed, I didn't hear from Tim. It started getting late. It started getting dark. I had no idea where Tim was. And, whatever, he's a grown man. I'm not too worried about him. I go to bed. I'm like, it's cool. We'll catch up with him in the morning. It was a little weird, though, because I was like, dude's been out riding this bike for, hours. Maybe it's just because I'm like, man, I can only go a couple hours and I'm done. But he was out, and so I went to bed, didn't worry too much about it. And then the next morning, I was up a little earlier than I would typically be up, about 5 and too early for me, but I was up at 5 in the morning. Usually this is right where I'm at 5 in the morning. But 5 in the morning, I'm up, I'm walking out the door to get to some business I had to take care of. And as I'm walking out of my apartment, a taxi cab pulls up into the parking lot, and not so gracefully, my roommate Tim kind of falls out of the taxi cab, and we cross paths. He's like, I don't know where your bike is. And I go about my business. Didn't really have time to hash it out with him then. But man, I missed my bike. It was a good bike. But have you guys ever misplaced something, or you've wondered where something is? I'm notorious for setting my keys down and then within minutes forgetting I even have keys. And it's kind of been my role today as we continue in our series of Monsters Under My Bed to tackle this topic of losing stuff and experiencing loss. And I'm going to be upfront with you guys. It's a heavy topic. But I was in mourning over my bike. When we lose things, whether it's somebody has, the bike is gone, or we've misplaced our keys, or maybe we feel it on a deeper level, there's something going on in our lives where we lose someone who's close to us, or we're navigating a tragedy at our workplace. One thing that is true is that we all experience loss in some form or fashion, and another thing that's true is that we all experience it a little differently. Now, with Halloween coming up, I'm actually very thankful because I was given the perfect illustration to show you guys the multitude of ways that people experience loss. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but every Halloween, late-night host Jimmy Kimmel plays a little prank on some kiddos. He encourages their parents to tell them that they have eaten all their Halloween candy. Now, if you want to see what people look like when they experience a loss, this is the way to go. So why don't you guys check this out with me for a couple minutes?
Mommy and I last night, we were watching a movie, and we ate all of your candy. Here, step up. Look at it again. All gone.
They ate all of your Halloween candy, and there's no more left.
What happened? What?
My candy's gone!
I ate all your Halloween candy.
You're just joking.
Nope, I ate it all.
I ate it all. Yep.
I hate you! You didn't know our candy that we worked so hard to get!
Well, I ate some too.
Oh, I just wanted to let you know I ate all your candy. I ate all your Halloween candy.
Don't cry.
Not. My eyes are just watering.
Don't be sad.
I'm not.
I'm sorry I ate all your candy.
My eyes are just watering.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Do you still love me?
Of course I do.
You ate all your Halloween candy.
Next time we go trick-or-treating, you don't do that, okay? Or I'll have to spank your butt and put you in your woman's
After church, I was really hungry, and I ate all your candy.
You idiots!
I'm sorry. Are you mad at us?
I don't want to you.
You don't want to look at me?
No.
Oh. Hey, buddy, guess what? Look at me. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. We didn't eat it. Okay.
I'm kidding.
Nope, I ate it all.
Well, I'm not mad. I'm not happy, but I still love you.
Oh, you still love me. You're not happy, but you still love me.
So like I'm torn because like that's pretty mean, but that's pretty funny though. So if y'all looking for something to spice your Halloween up a little, don't tell your kids that I gave you the idea, but feel free. But let me take you guys back to what was going on with my bike. See, so I had mentioned to you guys before that it was early in the morning, and after wondering what had happened with Tim and my bike, we crossed paths at 5 o'clock in the morning. He kind of stumbles out of a cab. I don't know where your bike is. Well, the reason I was up at 5 in the morning is I had been woken up by a stream of phone calls and text messages starting at about 2 in the morning. Family members reaching out, Chris, you have to call, Chris, you have to call. And I'm listening to these voicemail messages. We think your dad has had a heart attack. You need to come to the hospital. And you guys probably know that feeling. Like if you wake up to that many missed calls and text messages, it's just not how you want to start your day. Now, I remember listening to those and kind of processing the situation in my head, and I really didn't know how to think or how to react. And I called my mom, hey, what's going on? Yeah, we think your dad has had a heart attack. We've been in the hospital for a few hours. And I asked I look back now, and I feel like it was a stupid question, but I was just so in shock and confused. So I just said, is this a come to the hospital now kind of thing, or do I come later or after work? And of course it was come to the hospital now kind of thing. And so I called my boss and I said, hey, here's what's going on. I'm not coming in today. I'll keep you posted. We really don't know what's going on. And on the way out, I passed him. And his shenanigans with my bike just weren't important. The week went on, and we were in the hospital, and different doctors had different opinions on what was going on, some more optimistic than the others. Lots of friends were reaching out through social media, text messages. Jason, our lead pastor, came and visited at the hospital. The minister at the church where my mom attends came out and visited, and it was just like so much support going on, and emotions are all over the place. But eventually everything came to a halt, and we had to make the decision that it was time to pull support. And I don't know what situations you've been in where you've had to make decisions like that, or what losses you've experienced, but that is a moment that is burned into my brain. Do you guys have moments like that that are burned into your brain? I remember talking to my mom and my sister and telling them, hey, like, we have to do this. And even as I'm talking about it now, the images are in my brain. So we made the decision, we pulled support. The week carried on. I found myself in funeral home meetings with my mom, trying to figure out, what the best decisions were, helping relatives from out of town figure out how to get in. And at the same time, trying to write a message to give at my dad's funeral, and again, just chaos, feelings all over the place, and it was difficult for me. Now, that's just my story of loss and grief. There is nothing special about me. There is nothing special about that story. Only reason you get to hear it today is because I'm the person that has a microphone and is standing up here. But I know that in this room, there are other stories. There are other folks in here who have lost loved ones, people who have been in broken relationships, folks who have endured financial hardships, lost a job, been given a diagnosis of a terminal disease. There are so many things that can hit us. You lose a bike, you find out your candy got eaten. But we've all experienced some sort of loss, and that's what we're going to be talking about as we continue this morning. Like I said, admittedly, it's going to be a little heavy, and I want to give you guys permission right now as we go through this. I know that I don't know your situation, and as you hear me talk about my situation and what I've learned and what I've been through and what I've found, it's okay if your reaction is, Chris, you do not know what I've been through, because you're right, I don't know what you've been through. Chris, you don't know my experience. You're right, I don't know your experience. I just want to share from mine, hoping that we can find some challenge and some comfort together. Would you pray with me? God, thank you for today. Thank you for giving us a place here where we can be open, where we can be transparent, and where we can look for your comfort in the times of our loss, in the times of our heartache. Would you just be with us and guide us through the rest of this morning? In Jesus' name. So when we experience a loss, again, everybody experiences it a little differently, but one thing I can say pretty certainly is that it throws your whole life off balance. There's an author, C.S. Lewis. He's a Christian thinker, very famous from the World War II era, most known for his Chronicles of Narnia books, but he went through a season in his life where he had lost his wife, and he wrote a whole book about how he processed that experience. And I want to read a passage to you from it. It'll be on the screen. When writing about the loss of his wife, he says, "No one ever told me that grief felt so like fear. I'm not afraid, but the sensation is like being afraid. The same fluttering in the stomach, the same restlessness, the yawning. I keep on swallowing. At other times, it feels like being mildly drunk or concussed. There is a sort of invisible blanket between the world and me. I find it hard to take in what anyone says, or perhaps hard to want to take it in. It's so uninteresting. Yet I want the others to be about me. I dread the moments when the house is empty, if only they would talk to one another and not to me." And as you read his words and you hear what he's saying, what you see is a lot of conflict. Like, I'm lonely, but I don't want to be around people, but I kind of want to be around people. And there are feelings in my body that I can't explain, like I'm tired, my stomach is fluttering, I feel like I'm drunk, I feel like I'm checked out. Because when we go through a loss, when we go through some turmoil, the emotions are all over the place. Now, in the world of counseling and mental health, there is a template called the 5 stages of grieving. Now, I'm going to tell you straight here from the beginning, this is not necessarily a checklist or a, solution or plan that everybody's going to go through, but it is helpful. So there are 5 stages, 5 feelings, or 5 experiences that tend to come along with grieving and mourning a loss. The first of these is denial. And denial is not acknowledging the depth of what's happening. Or as our young friend here says, no, no, #yelling. The next stage is anger. And anger is a strong feeling of displeasure or hostility. Or as this eloquent young lady put it, yeah! #hitting. The next stage is depression. And depression is overwhelming sadness, lack of energy and motivation. Or as this young lady puts it, oh no! #crying. The next stage is bargaining. Bargaining is attempting to make an arrangement to change the situation. And as this gal puts it, I'll have to spank your bottom and put you to your room. #she's sassy. The last stage is acceptance. And this is realizing the situation for what it is and moving ahead. I'm not mad. I'm not happy, but I still love you. #all. Because she was adorable. I'll be honest, she was adorable. Now, the thing that frustrates me about a template like this is that it's not that simple. Because if you're one of my type A friends, you're like, thanks, Chris. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cool, when something happens, I know how it's going to be. We're going to knock it out. It's going to be fine. That's not how this works. You cycle through those things, and they come, and they go, and they overlap. And when you think you're past one, it'll come back and get you out of nowhere. I'm going to just tell you what makes me mad about it. There have been times that I have been in that zone of acceptance. I'm like, cool, I'm done feeling bad about this. Nope. Depression or anger or denial sneaks up on me. I can't tell you how many times I've accidentally picked up the phone to call my dad in these last 3 years. Sometimes because I'm in denial that it ever happened. Sometimes I do that and I get angry or depressed, even though most of the time I feel like I'm in acceptance, like I'm good, I'm moving ahead. Because it just doesn't work. It's not a checklist. What I like about a list like this is that it does give me something to hold on to. It does give me a guide to at least kind of know what I'm going to experience. Because when I go through these things, when you go through these things, the first thing that you really feel that's not technically on this list is you feel like a crazy person. When I'm sitting there trying to sort what's going on in my head and what's going on in my heart and what I'm experiencing, I feel like a crazy person. And when I have a list like this that tells me, hey, here are the things you're probably going to go through, I feel a little less crazy. Not a whole lot less crazy, but a little less crazy. And it helps me because when I'm hanging out with other people who are going through this, then I can say, okay, I kind of know what's going on here. I like it because it gives me something to kind of hold on to, something to understand. Now, just because we have kind of a template, that we know, okay, we're going to go through some denial, some anger, depression, some bargaining, some acceptance, that doesn't make the feelings less intense. It doesn't make it necessarily easy to go through. We all have a reaction to these things. We can't avoid it. Now, I don't know what your reaction is when you've gone through a loss, but I know what I think the gut instinct is to kind of run away from it. Maybe that's just my gut instinct, is to run away from it, pretend it's not going on. And we can do this in multiple ways. Maybe like we literally run away from it. Man, things are so crazy at my house right now, like I'm going to actually run away from it. Maybe we just go and we isolate ourselves, like, I'm going to hide in my room, or I'm going to hide in the corner, or I'm just going to stay in like one spot and not deal with anybody. Maybe we just keep ourselves busy. Lord knows there's always more work to do at the office. And if I'm doing work at the office, I don't have to think about what's going on in my head and in my heart. Maybe we keep busy by saying, oh man, we've been talking about getting little Johnny karate lessons. We need to get him 10 this week right now. We got to keep something going. Sometimes we just keep busy. Maybe we self-medicate. We use things like food, drink, substances, exercise, whatever it is. We do something to kind of self-medicate. Keep our bodies distracted through the different chemical reactions that can go on. Or maybe we just set up camp with a good old-fashioned Netflix binge. I heard Stranger Things Season 2 is coming, but maybe we set up with a Netflix binge, or maybe we just pull out our cell phone and we feast on social media. Because if I'm reading about your drama, or I'm looking at pictures of your kids, I don't have to be thinking about my head and my heart. The Bible has a lot to say about how we process and move forward with these feelings. And if, here at Forefront, we use the Bible every week. We believe the Bible is God's word. We believe the Bible has lessons in it for us daily to enhance the way we relate to God, to enhance the way we relate to each other, to help us find peace in our life. And if you don't have a Bible, we would love to give you one. There's a couple ways you can grab one. You can always drop by the Get Connected table that's out in the lobby and just say, hey, what's up, Jack? Chris told me you got a Bible for me. And they'll give you one. You can also go online to forefrontchurch.info and click the Get a Bible tab and sign up, and we'll get you hooked up and connected there. But we are going to be spending some time in the Bible. And again, let me give you permission. If you are here this morning and you're not a Christian, or you're still trying to figure God and Jesus out, it is perfectly okay that as I say these things today, for you to not be sure. You can say, Chris, I'm listening, but I'm not sure that I get what you're saying. That's okay. But I want to read a passage to you that comes out of the book of Ecclesiastes. It's chapter 7, verse 2. And it reads the following. It says, it is better to go to a house of mourning than go to a house of feasting. Now, this passage on the surface doesn't make sense to me. Like, how many times have you been hanging out with your friends and you said, we got two options, fellas. We can go hang out at the house of feasting, so, get some steak, get a couple beers, maybe get some s'mores. Or we can go to the house of mourning, which is pretty much just going to cry and use tissues. What do you guys want to do? I mean, the natural answer is, a house of feasting. In the context of this passage, though, that's not the statement being made. When we're going through hurt, when we're going through turmoil, it is better to go to the house of mourning, because in the house of mourning, we can process that. We can feel that. We can understand that and move towards healing. The house of feasting is just a distraction. You cannot find healing at the house of feasting. You might find some good nachos, but you will not find good healing. Jesus put it this way in Matthew chapter 5, verse 4. He said, blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. And again, on the surface, this is a verse that kind of gets under my skin, because I'm like, what do you mean, blessed are those who mourn? Because by definition, you're saying some bad stuff is going down. So how are that person blessed? But blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. If you're not taking the time to mourn, you're not allowing space for comfort. You literally cannot experience comfort if you're not mourning. Jesus knew that. And so, as I've thought through all that, I know the temptation to go to the house of feasting. I know the temptation to run away from the feelings and the thoughts. But this is what I believe. Whether you can meet me here or not, this is what I believe. When we hide from our pain, we give it the power to guide our steps. When we take it to Jesus, he walks through it with us. When we hide from our pain, we give it the power to guide our steps. But when we take it to Jesus, he walks through it with us. In the book of John, which is a story about Jesus' life and ministry, we read about a man named Lazarus. And Lazarus is a friend of Jesus. Like, they roll deep. Like, they're good friends. He knows the family. He knows the sisters. Like, it's a crew. They all love each other, hang out, party, do their thing. While Jesus is off in another town doing his thing, talking, teaching, healing people, he gets news that Lazarus is sick. Now, to me, that's a big deal because Jesus did not live in a text message social media culture. So, like, somebody made the effort to tell Jesus. Like, they said, oh my gosh, Jesus' boy is sick. Let's send the messengers across the way to let him know. When Jesus hears the news, he spends a couple more days wrapping up business where he's at, and him and his followers make their way back to the city. And on the way back, Lazarus passes. Jesus knows this. He tries to kind of explain to his followers what's going on, and they don't really get it. But they make their way back to Lazarus' town. Jesus meets up with Lazarus' sister Mary. And it reads like this in John chapter 11. When Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. I'm going to pause right here because this is like, let me just read that. Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Like, this wasn't a polite, like, hey, like, I know you're Jesus, so it's good. This is an anger, hurt-filled statement to the face of Jesus. Like, hey, if you had been here, this wouldn't have happened. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. Where have you laid him? He asked. Come and see, Lord, they replied. And Jesus wept. Now the story goes on. And they find Lazarus' tomb. Jesus raises him from the dead. Everybody celebrates. But I don't want to focus on that part of the story. I want to focus on those two red words on the screen, Jesus wept. Because when we talk about Jesus and putting our trust in Jesus and following Jesus, I'm not asking you to follow somebody who is removed from what we experience. In this story, even though Jesus, fully aware of what was going on, in this story, when he encounters these people, when he sees what's gone on with his friend Lazarus and his family, he is moved in his spirit and troubled, and he weeps. And there are other passages throughout the Bible that talk about hardships Jesus endured, where he was beaten, where he was kicked out of towns and villages, where he was mocked, where he was made fun of, where he was betrayed by close friends. And so when I tell you that Jesus will walk with us, he doesn't just he walks through it with us because he's felt it and he's experienced it. When we hide from our pain, we give it the power to guide our steps. When we take it to Jesus, he walks through it with us. And I really believe that, because when we do these things that we've been talking about, when we distract ourselves, when we isolate ourselves, when we give into our vices or, whatever decisions we make to try to avoid our pain, that is literally pain guiding our decisions. I don't want to feel this way, so I'm going to do this. But when we give it to Jesus, he walks with us through it. I want to share a verse with you. And this is the verse to take home with you today. It comes from the book of Psalm, chapter 27, and this is a book of poetry in the Old Testament of the Bible. And it reads like this: For in the day of trouble, he will keep me safe in his dwelling. He will hide me in the shelter of his sacred tent and set me high upon a rock. For in the day of trouble, he will keep me safe in his dwelling. He will hide me in the shelter of his sacred tent and set me high upon a rock. I don't know why we all experience the different things we experience. I can't make sense of every loss or hard time I've endured, and I certainly can't make sense of everything you've endured. I can't make sense of why God intervenes here and why God doesn't intervene there. I don't have those answers for you today. What I do know is when we go through these things, God promises to be a shelter. God promises to be a safe place where you can have all the feelings, all the emotions, all the struggles safely. I want you to know that Forefront is a safe place. I want you to know if you're with us this morning and you're going through one of those things, this is a safe place for you. It doesn't matter if you're a Christian, a believer. It doesn't matter if you don't buy into the Jesus thing. If you're here with us, this is a safe place for you. Now, if you are a Christian, if you do claim to follow Jesus, let me just ask, please don't make a fool out of me. For one, I'm perfectly capable of doing that on my own on a regular basis. But two, I just told everybody in this room that Forefront is a safe place. Please don't ruin that for me. Please do not make me out to be a fool. This should not be a place where people have to worry about what they're feeling or experiencing. This should not be a place where people have to feel embarrassed or scared or nervous. This is a safe place. So Christians, please don't make a fool out of me. When we hide from our pain, we give it the power to guide our steps. When we take it to Jesus, he walks through it with us, and he puts us in his shelter. Tell you a story. I did not share this story at the last service. I was nervous. I thought I was running out of time. But I think about my dad, and when I was 13 years old, we had moved to Hampton. We were a military family, so we kind of jumped around quite a bit as a kid. And like I was like any 13-year-old, and no offense if you're 13 years old in here, maybe y'all aren't the same as I was when I was 13, but I was a really awkward 13-year-old. And I had just kind of hit that place in my life where I was like, oh, I get how friendship works, and I have people, and I have activities that I like to do. And then we moved across the country. And I was kind of a sensitive kid anyways, and so it rocked my world. So we moved here, and my attitude changed, and my behaviors changed, and I was traditionally an A and B student, and I started failing out of classes in high school. And my dad took me for a walk. We were stationed on Fort Monroe. If you've ever been over at Fort Monroe and you're familiar with the seawall, it's a path across the water where you can kind of walk and you hear the waves and see the ocean. We went for a walk. And like as a 13-year-old, I was like processing all that pain and hurt, but I was also like too cool to talk to my parents about it. But my dad finally broke me down. And I told him how sad I was. I told him how angry I was. Told him how mad I was at him because it was his job that made all this happen. And he just listened. And he just walked with me. And he just told me that it was okay to feel those things, and that he loved me, and that we were going to figure it out. Now, he did tell me that some things were going to have to change. He was definitely in his dad role. Those grades are going to get up. You're not going to talk to your mom like that anymore. But he couldn't immediately satisfy the fact that I was tore up about the circumstances, but he gave me a safe place to feel it. He gave me a safe place to process it. And he walked with me, and he guided me through it, and he gave me shelter. So I don't know what's going on in your lives. I don't know where this resonates with you, whether you've been through something, you're going through something, or maybe something is coming at some point that's going to push this on you. But if nothing else, take this verse home with you. For in the day of trouble, he will keep me safe in his dwelling. He will hide me in the shelter of his sacred tent and set me high upon a rock. For in the day of trouble, he will keep me safe in his dwelling. He will hide me in the shelter of his sacred tent and set me high upon a rock. Let's pray.
Thanks for tuning in to the Forefront Church video podcast. Our hope and prayer is that this has left you encouraged and challenged you in your faith. And you might have some questions and some ways that you want to figure this out, and we want to help with that. Head over to forefrontchurch.info, and there's a couple different ways that you can connect. Click the Connect tab and let us know how we can be praying for you, or a staff member can be contacting you this week. Maybe you have just been encouraged by this and want to support the ministry here at Forefront Church. You can click the Giving tab, as well as other tabs that are in there to help you along in your journey with God. And so we're thankful for you. Thanks for tuning in, and we cannot wait to see you again here online on the video podcast. We love you, and we'll see you then.